The child looked around the fairyland again. Now he did not only see beauty. He saw patterns everywhere in the brightness of day and in the silence of night. So, a pattern is a memory. Some patterns last only for a short time, while others remain for a very long time. Memory is not found only inside the brain. The world itself can also be seen as a vast field of memories, endlessly forming, changing, fading, and reappearing. A footprint in sand is a short-lived memory of a step. A crack in stone is a longer-lasting memory of pressure. A mountain is a memory of Earth's movement. A river is a memory of flowing water shaping the land. In this way, the world is not just filled with objects, it is filled with patterns. And each pattern carries the trace of something that happened. Thought looked at the child and said, "So memory is not only something stored in the brain. Memory is the pattern left by change. And because change is happening everywhere, the world itself is a living river of memories." So, let us return to the author's main idea, Thought said. If a spirit, soul, astral body, or energetic body truly exists, then perhaps memory could be accessed by it in some way. If that were true, then after death, a person might still remember who they are and what they should do next. The child listened quietly. But knowing whether a spirit exists or not was not the author's main concern. Thought continued. He did not want to jump too quickly into the subject of spirit or soul. First, he wanted to understand the world, life, nature, the human being, the self, consciousness, dreams, matter, memory, psychology, and many other things. Thought looked at the child gently. His concern was to understand life before death, because most people do not even understand the life they are living now. The child became silent for a moment. Then Thought smiled softly and said, "So now, I think we should move to the next book, the one that helps us understand suffering." "The book called The Modern Buddha contains several subjects," Thought said. "One of them explains suffering and its cause." "We should first explore psychological suffering," Thought said. "Once we understand that, physical and biological suffering will become clearer by itself." The child listened carefully. Psychological suffering can be divided into two kinds, Thought continued. Suffering from the past and suffering from the future. He looked gently at the child. Suffering from the past means suffering through memory. For example, the baby sheep, the baby calf, the old dog, and the poor girl you saw is no longer in front of you right now. They belong to your memory. They belong to the past, but when you remember them and think about them, you still suffer. The child lowered his eyes. "This happens to many people," Thought said. "They regret mistakes they made before. They cannot go back and change them, yet they keep suffering from them again and again." He pointed softly to the child's head. "The past is past. It has no body now. It is not alive in the present world. It lives only as memory in the brain. But when you keep feeding those memories with thought, they remain active inside you and continue to hurt you." Then Thought became quiet for a moment. The second kind of psychological suffering comes from the future, but the future does not exist yet either. It is only a prediction created by the mind. For example, a student may worry about a math exam next week, but the exam is not happening now. He is not sitting in the classroom. The paper is not in front of him. Nothing is happening in the present moment. Yet the mind creates the future exam now, imagines failure, fear, and shame, and then suffers from its own prediction. "So the exam is hurting him now," the child said. "No," Thought said. "His thought about the exam is hurting him now." Thought pointed to the ground beneath them. "In reality, you live only in the present moment, the now. But the mind keeps bringing back the past and jumping into the future. Both are images in thought, not direct reality, yet they can still create real suffering inside you." He looked at the child kindly. "It is not the baby sheep hurting you now. It is your memory and thought about the baby sheep. It is not death itself standing here and hurting you now. It is your thought about death, your imagined future, and your memory of loss." The child became silent. So psychological suffering begins when thought becomes active around the past or the future, thought said. When thought does not interfere, psychological suffering does not arise in the same way. He gave another example. Suppose one boy whispers to another, saying that you are strange or weird. Even if you hear those words, suffering begins only when thought continues with them, when it repeats them, believes them, fights them, and builds a story around them. The child listened closely. If you hear the words but do not feed them with thought, they pass away like sound in the air. Then they do not grow into stress inside you. Thought smiled gently. So, the author's point is simple. When there is no psychological thought feeding the wound, there is no psychological suffering. Now let us go further, thought said. If there is no memory, can thought arise? The child looked confused. Thought smiled and explained. Let us imagine that you have only 1 second of memory. After every second, you forget everything you experienced before. In that case, there would be almost nothing to think about because thought needs memory to continue. The child listened carefully. If a thought arises from only 1 second of memory, thought continued, then that thought also cannot continue beyond that 1 second. It would appear and disappear almost immediately because there would be no memory to carry it forward. The child slowly began to understand. So thought depends on memory? He asked. Yes, thought said. Thought is built from memory. Without memory, thought has no ground to stand on. In other words, there is no thought without memory. Now let us go deeper, thought said. If memory is the root of thought, then what is the root of memory? Patterns, the child answered. Yes, thought said. We have already seen that patterns build memory. Then thought asked, and what is the root of patterns? The child became confused again. Thought smiled and pointed to the sandy ground nearby. Can there be a footprint without action? He asked. If no one steps on the sand, can a footprint appear there? The child slowly shook his head. Exactly, thought said. A footprint appears because an action happened. A crack appears because pressure or movement happened. A memory appears because something happened and left a pattern. Then thought paused. Let us stop here for a moment and look carefully at the message the author wanted to deliver. The child listened. So far we can see a chain, thought said. Thought depends on memory. Memory depends on pattern. Pattern depends on action. Therefore, action is one of the roots of psychological suffering. The child looked surprised. In science and logic, thought continued, we say that every action has a consequence. In religion, people often call this karma, but some people imagine karma as something mysterious that follows a person into the next life to punish them or force them to pay for what they did before. Thought shook his head gently. But the author does not begin with belief. He does not ask us to accept myths blindly. He asks us to look logically. He drew a simple chain on the ground. From action to pattern, from pattern to memory, from memory to thought, from thought to psychological suffering. Action leaves patterns, thought said. Patterns become memory. Memory gives rise to thought. And thought, when it becomes confused, attached, regretful, fearful, or worried, creates psychological suffering. The child looked at the glowing chain. So suffering is not some magical punishment? He asked. No, thought said. At least psychologically, suffering can be understood through cause and effect. Then thought looked at him closely. Now let us go even further. What is the cause of action? Thought asked. The child became confused. Thought looked at him gently. Is it not desire? He asked. Without desire, would you act? Let me give you a grounded example, thought said. Suppose you desire to become rich. Because of that desire, you begin to study harder, work harder, and push yourself every day. Through study and work, you gain knowledge, experience, and skill. Eventually, you may become wealthy. But after you become rich, another problem begins. Now you must protect your wealth, manage it, grow it, and avoid losing it. So your mind thinks constantly. You worry about losing what you have. You regret it when you make a mistake. You feel stress when your money decreases. Even after gaining what you wanted, thought continues to disturb you. The child listened carefully. So in this example, thought continued. The desire to become rich is the beginning. The hard study and work are actions, and they can create both physical and psychological strain. The knowledge and experience you gain become memory. The need to protect your wealth becomes thought, and the fear of losing money becomes psychological suffering. Thought paused. So the chain becomes clear. From desire to action, from action to pattern, from pattern to memory, from memory to thought, from thought to psychological suffering. Desire pushes action. Action leaves patterns. Patterns become memory. Memory gives rise to thought. And thought, when filled with fear, attachment, regret, and worry, becomes psychological suffering. I am not saying that a person must suffer if they become rich, thought said. And I am not saying that one should never try to become rich. I am saying that every desire and every action creates consequences, whether those consequences are good or bad. The child listened quietly. If one desires something and acts because of that desire, then one must be careful and aware. One must watch what one is doing, why one is doing it, and what is happening around them. That is the message the author wanted to deliver. The child looked at Thought with serious eyes. "Wait, but you are Thought," he said. Thought smiled almost guiltily. "Yes," he replied, "but I am only one part of it. I am not every thought you have." The child listened carefully. Thought is messy and vast. Thought continued. Everything you see around you in this dream is also thought. When you fly, that is thought. When you create dream characters, tools, machines, or strange worlds, those are thoughts too. He pointed gently to himself. So I am not all of your thought. I am only one form of it, the part that has come to speak with you. May I continue? Thought asked. Yes, the child said. Go on. The author went even deeper than this. He asked what causes desire itself. But I think we should stop here for now, because we have reached what you wanted to understand. The child looked at him. Now you understand psychological suffering, Thought said. You understand that desire can be one root of it, though not the deepest root. You also understand that worry, regret, fear, and other forms of psychological suffering can create stress. Thought pointed gently to the child's body. And stress does not remain only in the mind. It can affect the body too. When a person is full of panic, anger, fear, or worry, they may act wrongly and cause accidents that harm the body. Stress can also weaken the immune system, making the body more vulnerable to sickness. Even wounds or physical damage may heal more slowly when the body is weakened by stress. Thought looked at the child with calm eyes. So psychological suffering and biological suffering are not completely separate. The mind can disturb the body, and the body can disturb the mind. They are connected. The child woke up feeling confused, with deep thoughts filling his head. He looked tired and sad, as if his mind had not rested at all. Thoughts moved everywhere inside him, tangled and heavy. His head felt like a messy storm of questions, memories, worries, and unfinished answers. He went out with his parents and rode with them to the city by car. He saw people rushing through the main streets below, hurrying to work, school, and other places. From the 10th floor of the tall building, the city looked busy and restless. People moved in every direction, each one seeming to carry a head full of thoughts, just as he did. Some looked as if they were trying to solve problems. Some seemed to be searching for answers in their lives. Some looked happy, while others looked tired, sad, or worried. The child watched them quietly. For the first time, he felt that he was not the only one filled with thoughts. The whole city seemed to be moving under the weight of invisible questions. After visiting his father's office, they went to the market together. They walked through the busy aisles, collected food, vegetables, and fresh fruits, then returned home. That night, the child had dinner with his parents. They sat together at the table, eating quietly after the long day in the city. The child was still tired, and his mind was still full of thoughts. While they were eating, the television was on. Suddenly, the child looked up. An old man appeared on the screen. Another philosopher was speaking on the television, but the child listened with a sad and heavy heart. After a while, he went to his room, lay down on his bed, and stared quietly into the darkness. His mind was crowded with thoughts because of everything he had learned from the books. What he had discovered had not brought him peace. It had brought him even more questions, and they felt too deep and difficult for him to answer on his own. He began to wonder whether even the thought in his dreams could truly help him, because he now understood that the dream thought was also a part of himself. New questions kept rising in his mind and troubling him. Who was he before this life? Who would he be after it? His thoughts became tangled and restless, and the more they swirled inside him, the more his head began to ache. Suddenly, he was yanked off the bed with terrifying speed. No one could be seen. No hands touched him. Yet something had pulled him down by the leg so fast that he barely understood what had happened. He was surprised and a little shocked. He knew it was a dream, but the sudden pull and the darkness of the room frightened him for a moment. He did not want to continue the experience anymore, so he immediately allowed himself to wake up. He woke up back in his bed. For a moment, he stayed still, breathing quietly. Then his face tightened with anger. "Ah," he whispered to himself, "this dream thought is trying to mess with me again." He sat up with an annoyed look, but instead of being afraid, he became determined. He lay back down, closed his eyes, and prepared to enter the dream again. This time, he wanted to catch thought and ask why it was troubling him. He woke up in the same dream with an angry expression and looked around the dark room. He found a tall standing mirror in the bedroom. His reflection appeared in it, pale and quiet in the dim moonlight. But in front of the mirror, two dark child-shaped shadows were sitting silently on the floor. The child stared at them. "Hey," he said carefully. "Are you? Is that you?" The two shadows did not answer. They only sat there, still and silent. Something felt strange. The room was too quiet, as if the silence itself were watching him. But the child did not want to react with fear. He wanted to understand what was happening. So instead of speaking again, he slowly stepped back. Then he decided to leave the room and look outside. He ran toward the window and leaped through it, shattering the glass into sparkling pieces. For a moment, he was falling from nearly 5 floors up. Instead of crashing down, he flew through the night air and rushed toward the dark street below. He landed on the ground in a powerful hero landing, one knee bent, one hand touching the street beneath him. Slowly, he lifted his head. His face was serious and angry, and his eyes searched the darkness around him. He looked around. The city was dark, silent, and empty, except for the strange figures moving slowly through the streets. Their bodies were stiff, and their steps were heavy. One by one, they turned toward him and began walking closer. The child's eyes narrowed. Then he understood. "This is not dream paralysis," he said. "This is a nightmare." He clenched his fists and looked at the approaching figures with an angry face. "All right," he said. His face slowly changed into a strange, creepy smile. "Finally," he whispered, his eyes fixed on the nightmare before him. "Some fun." Fire appeared around his fists, glowing bright in the darkness. His eyes began to shine with a powerful light. Standing there in the empty street, facing the nightmare before him, he no longer looked like a frightened child. He looked like a superhero. He shot forward toward the zombies at incredible speed. In a flash, he kicked one of them away. Then he leaped toward another and struck it with a powerful punch. Another zombie rushed at him, but the child grabbed it by the leg and spun it through the air before throwing it into the side of a building. He moved like a superhero. He jumped from one zombie to another with impossible speed, punching, kicking, spinning, and flying through the dark street. The zombies were thrown in every direction, knocked away by the force of the super child. The city of zombies became his playground of chaos. Then he jumped high into the sky.